what they say, broken rod, broken dreams out here, man. It's a costly game. I stick the fish, and that you hear that. I was about a mile from the car, and the bite was on big, man. I made it a mile on a bicycle running, and I swear to you, new rod, new reel, plugs back on. I was back fishing probably within 8 minutes.
When you board the Long Island Railroad in New York City for the journey east to Montauk, 6.5 million people fade behind you on tracks that first reached the point of Long Island in the late 1800s, a place where Montauk Indians granted settlers pasture rights for their livestock in the 1660s and shared the cliffs by the sea with them for the next 200 years. Over a century later, a film odyssey that began in the Chesapeake, titled Running the Coast, would celebrate the fishery. That celebration would also turn out to be a time capsule. Blitzing fish have appeared only sporadically since, and with the 2015 class of fish carrying most of the weight and the 2023 striper biomass coming out of the Chesapeake numbering the lowest since the moratorium, the point of Montauk and its fall population are weathering another sea change. We're back again, and this time, cameras are off. Between takes, there's often unexpected moments, new conversations, and longer stories. So here they are, following people doing what they love, wherever they are. In this case, 120 miles out to sea. This is Cameras Off, hosted by Jamie Howard.
Well, there's only 2 trucks out here on the point, which is a little different than the old days. But luckily, one of them is Bill Schulken's. I recognize it. And he and I ran into each other this morning. I stayed out here last night because I missed him yesterday, because I know he's always moving. We are now in the same place at the same time and about to have a conversation. It'll be great to catch up and hear what's going on out here.
My glove. Oh, there it is. Thank God. I thought I lost my glove, my finger. It's actually bruised. It's not even cut. It's actually bruised from casting so much with regular tape. Mm-hmm. So this stupid glove, I don't really love this glove, but it protects my finger. I thought I lost, and I know I can't get no more in town this week.
Are you living out of this truck?
I've been living out of this truck for over a month. I've been in here since probably September 16th. Bill
is a link to the past, the old guard, the guys that fish by night and then otherwise are just eating, sleeping, and fishing, that have been here before the moratorium and have stories all the way through until today. And he's been out here a month, and I'm thinking this is probably my best shot to get a boots-on-the-ground report from a guy who's hard to find, but since he's retired from UPS, I'm guessing he has just a little more time on his hands.
Got a little coffee brewing. I got this cap imported from Canada, so it's just a fiberglass shell. And then I built everything on the inside. So I put in 200 watts of solar. So that starts in the back here. I got a 100 amp battery back here. This is my inverter, 2,000 watt inverter. Then I have right on the back, I have my sink in water. And what happens is I have a nozzle that connects to a hose, so I can take an outdoor shower. Then in front of that, I got my refrigerator. Holds a ton of stuff. Then next to that, I got my little stove set up. And then in front of that is everything I need for my fishing. You know, when you're living in a van in a little slide on, you got to have everything completely organized. If you're not organized and you're going away for a few days, you're going to spend a half your trip trying to figure out where everything is. So you got to just take your time, put everything together, and then at the end of the seasons, I wash everything down in these boxes, I put them back, and they're ready for the next season.
And you can sleep up there, it's good enough air and everything?
Yeah, the grandma's attic, I sleep up top on there.
Does that TV work?
TV works, like I said, I did the whole thing. I built this so I can get the bike in here, I can get my little Yamaha, I got a Honda now, they stole my Yamaha, New York City. I bought a little Honda Navi, it fits right in the middle, so when I need to putt around. And then,
that this truck can hold that?
It just holds it, yeah. Just this cap is like 800 pounds.
Uh-huh.
That's the water boiling, if you heard that. Work hard, play hard, fish hard, and life is going to be great.
Yeah, man. Well, if you got a broken rod on the roof, that kind of says it all. It's like you've been going hard, right?
Oh, what do they say? Broken rod, broken dreams out here, man. like I said, it's a costly game. That was a custom stick. It was a nice stick from East End Bait and Tackle out in the Hamptons, and yeah, I guess I'll admit it. I probably high sticked. I don't think I did, but I probably high sticked the fish. And next thing you heard that, you hear that, and I was about a mile from the car, and the bite was on big, man. I made it a mile on a bicycle running, and I was back fishing probably within 8 minutes. New rod, new reel, plugs back on, and yeah, nah. Listen, it comes with the game. You know, talking about that too. In these spots, rod tips, you know, you want to bring rod tips because you're probably, especially when you're fishing a new rocky area, you're gonna overcast on something. You're gonna hit that rod tip. If you only have one rod and you don't have a rod tip, your night is over. Mm-hmm. And secondly, you know, if you're fishing rough areas, you bring a second rod. Whether it's a 2-piece crap old stick, bring something extra. Because if the bite's on it, now you can't fish. You just did all the prep and you only had one rod. Bring an extra rod.
Bike is sort of your mode of transport off the back, the e-bike?
That's the e-bike. You know, it's a mid-drive, and they're fantastic for the beach. You know, you could, e-bikes are a funny thing. They're all made in China.
Yeah.
The torque is what counts. You know, the tires. You know, you need at least a 4.5-inch tire, and but they're, you know, like to get to spots that you can't get to. You know, we're losing access. We're losing, you know, all the millionaires, billionaires are buying up all the beachfront, and they're controlling the parking. And, you know, sometimes you got to park 2-3 miles away. You got to have somebody's driveway you can park in.
Yeah.
That's the key.
Yeah.
You know, so that's the way you get into these spots. If you don't have a friend that you met on the beach or an old uncle that has a hedge fund buddy, you can't get into these spots.
If I go fishing in Montana, I'll just walk the water. Do they hear? They will not let you go in someone's yard. You can't go through the water line and up and down and around.
They can't stop you from going anywhere.
Yeah.
So like if I started here in Montauk and I wanted to end in, you know, whatever, what Shinnecock, I can walk the water line as far as I can walk it. Yeah, no, they can't stop you.
Yeah.
But you can't walk through. There's no egress or nothing like that to get in between house to house.
It's quiet out here right now. Nobody's here.
Listen, I don't know what's going on with the Northeast community. You go to the surf casting shows, you go to the MSA show, they throw a wonderful show, and there's about 50 million people in the place. You can't move. You're honest to God, you can't move. You come out to the supposedly surf cast mecca of the world, and there's 4 trucks in the parking lot on an October 15th, Northeast. You tell me. You explain it to me. I can't figure it out.
Is it because the rumors of no fish, or?
You know. Here's the deal with that now. So what happens is now, because there's so few people fishing, people don't know there is fish. And now you're putting in the time, you're putting in the effort. Why are you going to turn around and start spreading word that you're getting fish? Nobody even sees you catching them anymore. So it's a lack of people fishing. Yeah. It's a lack of reports. But there's fish. But people are all armchair, man. This new world of young men. I'll tell you something. I see the girls out here fishing harder than the men. And that's something to be said. The girls are fishing harder than the men out here now. The men want to put on a pair of waders, they want to go to a lake, and they want to catch a freaking sunny. This requires work, heart, soul, and you're gonna break your knee, look at the top of my truck right now. I got a $500 stick, $600 stick in half right now up on top of the truck. This ain't, you know, like they say, it ain't for the faint of heart. It takes work. It takes risk. You know, if you wear waders out here, and you put on a wetsuit, a top, you're going to be drenched. You're going to have about a gallon of water in each foot by the time you get out. You know, so we do the wetsuits, and we're not going to, the reports are going to be few and far between. You see, the guys that are fishing, you'll see their names winning the fisherman tournaments, the Fred Galafaro tournament, the locals tournament, the Surf Masters tournament. Those are the guys that are fishing. Everybody else, they're BSing. You know
but
what
it's
I mean?
not like it was 10 years ago, though, right?
The fishing?
Yeah.
The quality of fish is better.
Really?
The quality of fish is better. People ain't fishing. You know, it's like I said, if you're putting in the time, there's fish. But you know, I don't know. Maybe people can't afford gas. I have no idea. We don't have blitz fishing.
Yeah.
We don't have blitz fishing. That was
but you're still
2014.
Seeing quality fish coming through.
2014
on
was the last year. When you shot the film.
Yeah.
You can't even imagine how lucky you were, because literally those were the last blitzes we seen in Montauk.
Yeah, those 3 years.
That was it. We haven't seen since 2014, 2015. There hasn't been.
Yeah, I think we saw a little bit of one in 15.
Yeah,
'cause
that's-
we started
that's
editing. We
it.
started editing in 2015.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah.
There has, you'll see it. You know, if you see one blitz a year, two blitzes a year, and I'm talking about a football and a half size
Yeah.
blitz, you
Yeah.
got lucky.
Yeah.
You got lucky. No, everything is, you know, putting in your time, blind casting. Yeah, I tell people all the time.
Yeah.
You know, you got 6-7 miles of Montauk.
Yeah.
You go 3 miles one way, you go 3 miles the other way. If you can't catch a fish, if you can't pick out a point or figure out some structure, you better go up to Lake George or that lake down in, you know, wherever. It's not for you. You know, you got to. Another thing with fishing out here, you got to stay in shape, some kind of shape. You can't let yourself go. You let yourself go out here, you're going to break your ankle. You're going to break your knee. You know, you got young kids now. The lighthouse. You know, they redid the lighthouse. You know, they're falling into the crevices. They're getting it's angled up now. You know, they're getting washed over with the waves. So everything got a little tougher out here. It's not as easy as it once was either. That's the other thing.
You know, it's a beautiful morning out here right now. This is just an illusion though, right? Because if you move, the wind is just cranking. We're just on the lee, right?
Oh, on the north side, that wind is blowing probably 22.
Let me see how close I can get without the wind blowing us out.
What, the bluff?
The bluff, yeah. I think it's going to be too windy. We'll just stop and talk or so.
You want tea?
I'm good. Yeah, I had some orange juice. That'll have to do me.
Yeah, I broke that freaking stick. That pisses me off.
So which
man.
one's broken?
You see the orange one, custom, East End. The rocks, they're unforgiving. You know, you do a power cast and you overextend. So like when you're coming down,
Yeah.
you touch a rock, you nicked it. You nicked the rock. Yeah, you nick a rock, and the next thing you know, you lift up the.
Education is, what does that mug say?
The mug says, education is important, but fishing is important. You gotta have a sense of humor out here, man.
Oh man. This is one of the all-time views.
This is my
In
backyard.
fishing.
This is my backyard.
Old-timer. My father used to come out here and he would tell me how he would just hang out up here with all the dudes from New Jersey and New York.
Well, this fence line we just passed, right? This is the new fence line. 20 years ago, we're gonna walk. I'll show you. We used to park to this asphalt.
Really?
Yeah, and all we had was those logs that are laying.
Uh-huh.
There was no fence. So you know, the world was a different place. It wasn't as safe. So you would.
Is that all the erosion?
The log, yeah. There's nothing. This is it. This is all that's left of it. We would park here.
Good Lord. Whoa. Whoa.
And this was the part. So you would stop here, and this was the you know, like the gutter or whatever you want to call it. And,
Wow.
Yeah. This is all that's
How
left.
far out was the
At least
edge?
another 20 feet.
Wow. What are these boats here? Are these commercial guys out here?
Some of them are commercial, some of them are bass, and they've been putting the nets up. Yeah, they put the nets up right on these spots. That red boat's a commercial guy.
How do you think they affect the fishing? They do or don't?
Well, they run their lines. We were talking about this the other day. They run their lines. You know, they run the nets right on the edges of the bars. So sometimes they do it prior to the bar. Sometimes they do it right after the bar. And either way, like the other day, we had one boat. He had to pick up 2,000-3,000 pounds of bass. I mean, it was just.
That's what I heard. That's what Wetzel said.
Yeah, oh, he saw it. He saw it.
He said, yeah. He said they've been doing it all week. He
Yeah,
said he had
yeah,
5,000 pounds.
Yeah, I heard
Day
the
for a
numbers.
week.
I don't like to get into everything with everybody, but yeah, their numbers were sick. The numbers. We actually witnessed it. I mean, we took. It was me and a couple of other guys, and we took out the binoculars and we were watching it, and it was absolutely. The guy was no exaggeration. He had his net set within 100 feet from the shoreline, and you know he was able. You know, he knows the waters. He was able to get in, grab his line.
He's got his electronics.
And he just, you can imagine how many fish were in there.
Yeah.
You know, and then they were, you know, I mean, we're talking anywhere from, 28-inch fish to, there were fish bigger than 40 inches, 42, 43 inches in there. Yeah.
How long are they allowed to do that? Until they get their quota?
Yeah, there's a lot of things that go on.
I've heard there's some bycatch issues, you know, where people just like they can catch a certain amount, they'll toss.
There's a lot of ways around the system.
Yeah.
And it's, listen, the marine fishery knows what go on. There's not enough DEC. There's not enough enforcement. It's impossible. People complain about the bridges. They complain about the little piers. They complain about the little docks. This is where the bycatch. This is where the biomass is getting. You got 3 guys on a pier that kill 15 fish. Let's just say they're poaching. Not a big deal. You got a boat that's doing what they're doing. Some of these boats, they're getting thousands of fish. So don't waste your time on the mom and pop guy. That's the immigrants, the this, the that, the people from the inner cities that don't have a lot to begin with. They're feeding their families with these fish. These guys are feeding the masses, and they're charging $40, $50 a pound. I mean, who is the person that should be hit? The guy that's making $20, $40, $60, $100,000, or the guy that's trying to get a fish to put on the table? I know the guy that I'd be looking at.
Yeah.
But that's just me. I'm not the government.
Well, the problem is you have to go after some of these things, and I think the problem is every time they try something, it's like whack-a-mole.
Well, they just did a good job, with one of the guys a local guy. They hit him in town, and he just got convicted of criminal charges, and we'll see if that puts a little scare into some of these people. I don't know, but they hit him a couple of years ago, and then they hit him again, and we're talking about 100,000 pounds of fish. We're not talking about, it was a fluke. It was a fluke thing. But he got convicted in Suffolk County courts. Yeah, selling them. 100,000 pounds of fluke. Come on. Yeah. That's the other thing too. The seal population exploded in the last 10 years out here. So now they're fishing the same rocks that we fish. So now they know, like we know. You may not see it here. We're overlooking on an overlook right now, but there's rocks out there. They're submerged. These seals, like we know where they are. The seals know where they are. So if the seal gets there before us, they're getting that fish before we get that fish. So that's been a little bit of a problem with some of our regular spots. The seals now will sit on our spots just like we sit on that spot. They go beeline right to the spot. Like we beeline for the tide, but they're already there. They already got the big fish. And now we're stuck with whatever's left over. See, here's the thing. Everybody thinks there's a special place to fish out here. Every single place in Montauk produces. And that is a fact. Every single place produces. Now, when you're doing it in the daytime and you're doing it in the nighttime, it's two different games. Whether you're a man, woman, or child, if you come here equipped for what you're supposed to be doing in Montauk, it's like going on a bear hunt with a BB gun. If you come equipped with what you need in Montauk, anybody can fish here. Now, like I said, if you let yourself go a little bit, and you get a little, I have to say, on the out of shape is how I'll put it. You're not going to be able to walk these. They call them ankle busters. All these rolling boulders. So all of these, the whole eastern end of Montauk is all boulders. You have to be able to control your own weight and have balance on these little rocks. But you don't have to go. Everybody thinks you got to cast out 400 feet out here. You got to cast over the white water. You cast over the white water. You just get into a little bit of deep, 6 foot, 8 feet, and you're going to get fish. You cast 30 feet out. I mean, this last week in particular, my cousin was out fishing. He was using a regular, no-name pencil popper, regular no-name off one of the $2 bins at one of the shows. He pulled in a 26-pound fish, 20 feet in front of him. Wow. So it's not.
But we can point out the spot if you want.
Oh, the spot right. You see that rock right over there? Yeah, she was able to get up. That rock is right above. Now some of the bars out here are long, so she was able to walk right up to her knees.
You're kidding, right?
No.
Really? You did it here? No.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, right in that little water right there. The water was up to her knees. She was able to,
You and I were catching them that night back in the day, right down there.
Right on that rock right down there.
Every other cast.
Yeah.
That was amazing.
Yeah, that was.
Have you seen it like that since then?
Yeah, we had it. Yeah. We had, like I said, last week we had it like that. That's what we were talking about earlier.
Really?
If you put the time, there was me and a couple of other guys out, and the bite went from 9 o'clock to 4:45 in the morning. And the best part of the night was when we were missing the fish, because they would hit the plug. We were using darters pretty much.
Yeah.
They were hitting the plug and they were missing it, and then they would hit it, and then they would hit it, and then they would hit it, and they just kept missing it. And you're like, and you got the plug in without them hitting it, and that was that was a lot of fun when they were. I mean, it was great reeling them in every cast, but it was even better when the plug would just go flat. They would hit that plug, you lost touch with it for 2 cranks, and then as soon as you got the crank and you dug it back in, bam! Then the same fish, the next fish hit, and it was a lot of fun.
They hit it with their tail a lot, don't you think?
Oh yeah, they tail slap. Sure they do.
Yeah.
Sure they do. The bigger ones, no, they stun it.
A buddy of mine disputes that, and I tell him, I've said I've got video proof that is real.
When you use a pencil popper,
Yeah.
any top water, but a pencil popper in particular, because you're working the pencil slow.
Yeah.
You will watch that pencil go 3-4 feet away from it'll get smashed, and you'll see the pencil popper fly. So unless they know how to, spit it out of their mouth, I don't know if your buddy's right on that one. Now you see the tail. You actually see the tail swipe it.
Yeah.
And the pencil popper goes flying. And when you see that, that's another one of those, oh, you just get, you're like, oh my God.
I wish we could see this whole place light up with blitzes again. I mean, it's such a show from up here.
Well, you know what? Fortunately, to the south of us, not south on the South Shore, but going south toward Jersey, going toward, Middle Island, New York. There's been some blitzes going on. Late after Halloween, after Election Day.
Like the other night, Bill was talking about fish. He was calling it Lafayette.
The fish, the bait fish.
Yeah, you heard of that?
I don't. I think they were kind of spearing or something.
Yeah.
I'm not.
Yeah.
Everybody. You know what
Just
happens?
a term, because everyone tries to figure out what they are. Maybe.
Everybody has something, like you said. Spearing, silver sides, this, that. Like you guys, pogies up here is bunker.
Right.
Them porgies up here is a regular porgy. So like tartar, blackfish. There's rockfish, striped bass. Some people call blackfish rockfish because they're in the rock. So, it gets a little, the names get crossed over sometimes. Mackerel, mullet. These people, they're bunkers. You ask somebody down here what was passing by. It was a school of bunker. They'll tell you it was mullet. They'll tell you it was, it could have been sand eels, whatever. I tell everybody, make your own report.
Yeah.
Make your own report.
Yeah.
You could have a guy fishing, and it doesn't mean he's a bad. You could have the best fisherman in the world fishing right next to you. He's on an incoming. The tide goes slack. 45 minutes later, you got the incoming, and the next thing you know, baboosh, the bite turns on. So he just spent 4 hours of an outgoing. The tide slacked. 45 minutes later, you got the first of the incoming, and now the whole bite, he leaves. And now you got fish every cast.
How do you like the slack tide? Do you like that at all?
It's according to the day. It's according, it's according to the day. Slack is probably the slowest part of the day.
Yeah.
But there's times when you hit the bottom of the tide, it goes to every spot.
Yeah.
You get to the bottom of the tide, certain bites will wide open on the bottom. Then you get the beginning of the incoming, other spots, so the fish is still there from the bottom. Now they're there for the beginning of the end. They didn't really move nowhere. They're just waiting for that moving water again. They're waiting for them. So you got to wait out on that slack a little bit. And but slack is when you go get a cup of coffee.
Right.
You check your leader. You check your knots. You check, you make sure everything's clean. You make sure, you run your hand down, because that's how you lose the fish, especially in rocky areas. If you don't check your knots and your leader, even the clips, like, you got the paper clips, you got to look. Those things bend. They bend after a while, and they actually open up. And, there's a lot of torque from these fish. I don't care. You look at the size of the tails. You get a 26, 28-inch fish. They got a 5, 6, 7-inch tail. A couple of swigs of their tail, and they're bending the gear. Listen, I don't know what's going on with hooks, but a lot of the hook makers now, their hooks have gone to complete garbage. We're bending hook. You have to check every time you get a fish. Every time, not every other time. Every time you catch a fish, after you release that fish, you should look at your hooks. If you don't have to put your light on, feel them, and you're going to feel a lot of them are going to be bent out. You're bent, whether it's the hook, the hook is bent from the fish, or when you're trying to release it with a pair of pliers, the hooks are bending now. So you got a bent hook, you're not going to hold the fish.
I thought I just saw something out there.
Oh, sure. There's been bait all over. It's again, like you said, but it's
like
sporadically.
A little swirl. I was looking for it again, but these houses over here, I guess these big mansions over here.
Right.
I don't know who owns them, but I'm guessing you can't just walk through those yards.
No, you can't.
You just got to find your way,
that's what I'm trying to
trails
say.
and stuff.
No, you got it. That's why you get an electric bicycle.
Yeah.
That's why you got to try to make a friend.
Know a guy who knows a guy.
You hope, but even then, you can't really bring somebody because then you're going to lose your own access.
Exactly. Yeah.
So listen, you got a $20 million mansion on a cliff in a highfalutin town. You want strangers walking through your property? You got your wife, you got your girlfriend. Maybe you're having an affair that week. Who knows? You want people walking through your property? So you got to be.
I know.
It's
My father's funny, for me to get access to fishing places at home, they're like hand-me-downs. They're like, well, you can come with me and one other guy, but that's it.
That's it.
That's the spots. That's it.
That's
and
it.
he's like, and we almost lost one smallmouth fishing a couple weeks ago. The guy's just like, you guys can't, I see an extra car in here, so you guys can't use this access.
There you go. That's what I'm saying.
What's that noise?
Motorcycle.
So it was maybe like
Open evil, he's going to jump the cliff.
we were shooting off this cliff a few years ago.
Right.
And then just all of a sudden, an Apache helicopter just goes.
Right.
And we're like, what? Because Robbie had a giant camera.
Right.
And you just don't even know
Right.
the eyes around here.
Oh, yeah.
I couldn't believe it.
Well, we got the,
It just popped up. Like this radar installation over here,
well, this
there's
controlled
stories
the whole,
around that too.
This controlled about 80 miles, 100 miles of coastline here to, during the wars to prevent any kind of attacks.
Did you ever, was it you who was telling me you saw some light orbs back in there?
Boy, I don't know. I was back there years ago with one of my old girlfriends, and we were having a really good time, and we were reading it was Edgar Allan Poe, some of his short stories. And we were fooling around, ghosting and stuff, trying to make believe, bring up the.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, I don't know if it was a play on lights, whatever, but there were these white orbs that were appeared, and I swear to you, man, we tore. I must have been doing 60 miles an hour out of that park. I had goosebumps, and I got them right now. I got the goosebumps on my. I don't know what I saw, but it was some wild. It was wild. It was cool. It was fun. It was exciting, and
so they just sort of, were they floating in the air?
They seemed like they were floating in the air. Yeah. But all I know is I ain't been back there at night since.
Bill, I'll tell you this. Bill, the other night, Bill told me he was in the surf,
right,
near some rocks, and all of a sudden a white light just went, and he looked at his buddy, and he looked at him. And he didn't know, when he looked up, he looked down, he didn't know where it came from. He just sat there. He's like, I'm not going over there.
Well, last year or the year before, I had the same thing. I was down by Clark's.
Yeah.
And, unfortunately, like we were talking about, this is a physical game. So, a similar scenario. I seen a light out in probably about 150, 200 feet out.
Yeah.
And it was just riding with the water. So, my heart's like, oh, man. I'm thinking the worst. I'm thinking, is somebody going to be connected to this light?
Are you going to get teleported out of here?
I don't know. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, I'm waiting. And finally, it floated in. And it was a little, it was a flashlight. It was a headlamp that floated in.
Oh, good.
And nobody was connected to it. But the thing was, now I was waiting for the next day to hear somebody was connected to it. You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
But with blessings, there was nobody connected to it. It was just we got washed off and it was floating in the water. But no, heck yeah. Sometimes when you get the what do you call that stuff that floats? The sargassum stuff, the glowing, the seaweed. That is sometimes to spook you out. It'll be just like one little patch, and you'll see this. You just see this light in front of you, and it doesn't do it all the time. It just
phosphorescent
stuff, and that's when you're out here on a Tuesday or a Wednesday night. And you're 4 miles away from anybody. There's not a car in the parking lot anywhere. And you swim out to a rock and you see something and you hear something. Like sometimes, I can't explain it. There's somebody casting next to you and there's nobody there. But you'll hear the and you look to your left, you look to your right, there's nobody there. There's nobody there. It's maybe we're in a mid-moon cycle between full and half or whatever. You got enough shadow that you cast about 4 seconds later as you're just getting into your retrieve. You hear it again. So I'm sure there's some of these old timers that are still with us out there having a good time. This is a life to a lot of us. There's a lot of single guys out here that we get obsessed We miss out on families. We miss out on having the children. We miss out on family events because we're worried about the tide. We're worried about the moon cycle. You know, and really the worst of it is from August to, you know, November 1st. The rest of the year we could pretty much have normal lives. But that 2.5 months, man, we get obsessed.
Well, I mean, I've seen it firsthand. I mean, when we were shooting the movie, I've never seen such a joy. Like when those trucks were all lined up and those people are all talking and the camaraderie, the food, the stories, because everyone's coming in after being out all night.
Yeah.
You know.
It was, we've lost a lot of the old timers, you know, unfortunately. And, you know, we're starting to get, there's some kids, you know, picking it up. It's wonderful to see. There's a few kids under their 30s, and they're starting, you know, so they're still, it's awesome to see the progression of it. They come out here, you know, when they were young with their father, their mother, their grandpa, and they saw what we were doing. And they said, man, I want to do that. You know, they see the guys in wetsuits. You know, most of the time when the kids come out, you know, they're only in waders or a bathing suit. They come out in the summertime. Maybe they'll get lucky and get on a good bluefish bite. So they get that, like, man, I want to try to do that. But then what happens is they see some of the guys get in a wetsuit, and now they swim out to a rock. They don't forget that. They saw it. They caught some fish. They saw these. Now they saw the guys on a rock swimming, and they're like, man, I want to do that. So they start off now they can become 18, 19, 20 years old. They start coming out in a car, a little, you know, whatever, $1,800, whatever. They're sleeping in the back seat, and this is how we all start. You know, everything's
it's like a gateway
wet.
drug,
you
right?
You look at the windows are all fogged up. Everything there's about a half a gallon of water running down the inside of the windows just from the gear. They come out of the car, they're shivering, and you're like, big man, what are you doing? And you're like, hey, I'm going out, and you're
Need my
like,
fix.
yeah, you know, and they go out, and then a couple of years later, you know, they get it. Now they buy the wetsuits. Now they figure out how to do the wetsuits. They get the corkers. Now they're starting to, you know, adventure it out, and then, you know, next thing you know, they got a little pickup truck. They get the small cap, and then, you know, by the time they're 35 years old, they're trying to buy some kind of slide on or a van, and then they're living out here.
Their lives are in shambles.
You know, I tell everybody. I tell them all. I says, focus. Talking about DEC. Thank God. Here we go. They're here today. Wonderful state.
What if they talk to me?
But no, it's wonderful to just see the progression of the kids grow, and you know, learn, and it's great. It's great. But, you know, going back to, you know, like you said, how the parking lot used to be.
Yeah.
Nah, you know, it's not the same.
No.
It's not the same.
No. And I would think, and I think you may disagree with me on this, but I would think it's because there's just not the volume of what people expect. And so the way they're having to fish now, they don't like it, maybe.
You know what it is? This world has become instant gratification. So if you can't see it, it ain't there. So blitzes was easy. Like I said, I've always been a night guy.
Yeah.
So for me, I've always been casting in the darkness. A lot of guys, they want to come out and they want to cast into something. You know, I hate to say it, like I says, you know, the world became a little wussy, I guess is the easy word. You know, they don't want to put in the work. They want to, you know, they want to just cast into 5,000 fish.
But you're saying it was as good as what you and I saw back in the mid-2000s.
I will say night fishing. Since we put in the slots, it has gotten, just in these last 3 years, the fishing has got tremendously better. So from, let's just say, from 2015 to, let's just say, 2020, 2019, from 2019 to this year, you have progressively seen a much better mid-sized class, 100%. Now, from 2014 to 2019, I will give you 100%. The fishing had declined. No question about it. There's no question about it. But since 2019, progressively we have been getting a hair on the better side. You know, but like I said, I'm a night guy. I'm like I said, I'm not a blitz fisherman. And again, Jamie, it's where you go. Like if you talk to the Jersey guys, they're going to tell you fishing's been, you know, phenomenal for the last couple of years. You talk to some of the South Shore guys, they're going to tell you fishing was pretty good for the last couple of years. But no, where it was 30, 20, you know, 15 years ago, it's no, you can't say it was, it's not the same. You're 100% right. If you look at the old magazine covers, everybody had, all the big fish were 50s. Everything was 40s and 50s. Now, if you're in the 30, 40s, even the high 20s, you know, if you get into 28, 29, you're in a good class of fish.
Well, as long as there's volumes and those fish can grow, then
Yeah.
we're okay. But if it's, you know, overall biomass.
Well, I was reading the article just a couple of days ago. They said the Maryland biologist the other day, they said that the numbers for this year are horrific. They said the spawn for this year was absolutely.
So I've heard it was the worst since maybe the.
I heard, yeah.
Since the moratorium.
Yeah. So you know, hopefully they missed it. Hopefully they missed something. But it dropped like 10 points or something like that. It was like it was astounding a number. Maybe they're just trying to keep it, you know. Hopefully, I don't know. I'm hoping they missed the big mass of the fish. But that was a terrible, you know, for 5 years from now, 6 years from now, that's going to be a terrible. It's going to be a terrible. It's a terrible thing, you know. So
what are your your plans ahead? What have you been doing night and day? Because you and I have missed each other now 2 days in a row. Where have you been? What have you been doing?
Well, I miss you because I got to go to sleep. So I'm a night guy, like I said. So last night, for instance, let's not do last night. But last night I went out. I went out about 5 o'clock. I didn't even have a light with me, so I went out. But I had a couple of night plugs with me because I knew I was going to be out into the dusk.
Yeah.
So I didn't grab my light. I went out, and I was fishing with a wonderful gentleman, talking about old timer, an old man named Bill, and he's 80 plus years old. So me and him went down local, and we went down. We went fishing, and before we went down, we had incoming water. And he said, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "I'm going fishing." He said, "For what?" I said, "To get some fish." He says, "We ain't catching no fish tonight." I said, "How do you know that, Bill?" He goes, "I know." I said, "What do you mean you know?" I said, "Well, what are you doing here?" He goes, "I'm going to go try to catch something," right? So we're laughing. He goes, "We got the incoming." He goes, "We're not going to get nothing tonight. We didn't get touched." So I'm getting ready to walk off the beach, and then one of my buddies came walking down, and I wound up, this was supposed to be an hour and a half I was supposed to be out. I wound up fishing from like I said, 5:36 to about 11 o'clock last night. So that was a 1 hour session turned into 5 hours. I didn't have a headlight, I didn't have nothing. And you know, we got a couple of touches last night, but we didn't catch no fish last night. Came back in. Then I go to sleep for 2-3 hours. Then I get back up at 2:33, and then you go back out, and now you catch the next tide. Mm-hmm. And but this morning was quiet. And then what happens is, talking about why we missed each other. Mm-hmm. Then I got to go to bed sometimes. Yeah. I pulled the 20. I pulled it the other day. I pulled.
What about last week? Because when I just came in, I missed you too. You sent me a text that you'd be heading out around. I can't remember what it was, around 10 p.m. maybe.
Right.
But you had some good days before I got here, right? What were you doing those nights?
Oh, it was just, same scenario, like I said, same scenario, making my own reports. Mm-hmm. So there wasn't a lot of guys fishing. And if people were fishing, everybody was keeping it, tight to their chest. Mm-hmm. And I knew where there was some bait. I knew where there was some fish. Mm-hmm. You gotta go. We had, like we were talking about, we had all of these east winds. We had all these, you gotta go scope out. The structure's gonna change. The sand's going to change. So you got to go find points and coves and this and that. So I did my homework. I went, I looked, and I decided to go fish a couple of spots. And I found fish. And then, it doesn't take long. If somebody knows, there's some contests out here. So when your name gets thrown up on a board, people kind of know where you're fishing. Like every individual has their spots. Luckily for me, I do a lot of moving, so it took a few days before they could catch up to me. But they know that, like I got a big rig, so all they got to do is look for my truck. But how I try to be stealthy is I use my bicycle. So I'll park my truck at A, and I'm really fishing down by C. But they, guys knew where I was, and we got like I said, we got into the fish. We had nice fish for almost a week straight. We had multiple 20s, a couple of 30s in the mix. I had a 34. I saw a 37. 32 I saw, 28 I saw. I had a 28 actually. My cousin got a 26 on Saturday, so there was plenty of.
So it's been okay. And when you take people fishing, you said you took a newbie fishing. Yeah. When you take them fishing, what's your strategy there to get them into fish?
Well, first thing is just see what their capabilities are. Yeah. Like we said, Montauk is a hard spot to fish. Mm-hmm. Like I told you, I tell them to relax, cast. Just cast right. Just can't. I tell them all the time. Like sometimes they start overcasting. You know how like you slap cast. So like they'll start slap casting because they'll see me and the other guys trying to get a country mile out. This week was hilarious because here we are. all the guys that are casting a mile out, and everybody was catching everything on the inside. So the new people that couldn't cast, they were casting 30, 40 feet. They were getting all the fish. So I just try to make them as comfortable as possible. If we're in a rocky area, you know, I try to keep everything like a mid-level, so they don't, you know, like if you throw bucktails or tins in a rocky area, you're going to get caught up on the bottom. So I try to either keep them with something, you know, some kind of a floating bait, you know, whether it be, you know, poppers, pencil poppers, you know, like SP minnows, the old red fins, something that'll just stay mid-level. And this way they get comfortable casting, they get comfortable retrieving. A lot of people can cast, but they can't retrieve. They're either going way too fast or way too slow, or they let the you know, like I said, if they're using something heavy, they let it go right down into the rock, and you know, they're done. You know, when you're fishing on a rocky area, of course you want to skim the top of the rocks, but when they're new, they got to get that feel first. And once I see that they, you know, if they get the feel, you know, if they know how to throw, you know, I mean, listen, if you're a freshwater fisherman and you know how to fish structure, you can throw something heavier out here. But you know, when you're fishing with 2.5 ounces, you know, 1.5 ounces, it goes down quick and gets caught quick. Now you're spending the whole fishing trip tying, you know, and so it gets to be, you don't want that.
Yeah, we
know?
saw some just in the wash, like literally just as you're almost bringing it to the beach the other night. They were just in the wash. Yeah.
There was rain bait in the wash the other day. There was a lot of rain bait, and like I said, my cousin caught a 26, 15, 20 feet out. And the young lady I was fishing with, she caught, her fish was probably 35 feet out, and she caught a 21.
Had she surf cast before?
She does. Her grandfather taught her how, and but she was like a snapper fisherman. So last year she came out here, and she came out like with a fly fishing top on and a wide brim hat, and she seen everybody catching fish, and she got frustrated. She went out to one of the local bait and tackle stores that has a good surf casting supply. She bought, like we were talking about, all the essential gear. She bought a beautiful pair of caulking boots. She bought a beautiful pair of waders. She bought a wetsuit. She bought a very strong belt. You know, you can't have a flimsy belt. She bought a great plug bag. She bought a very good fish gripper, and she had a nice knife and a nice pair of pliers. And she bought a nice headlamp. She was all set. She got out there. She was $1 million. She had the right gear. You get the right gear, you can fish comfortably. She was able to fish comfortably. She was able to focus on fishing. She knew how to tie her knots. She practiced before she got here how to tie the knots. She practiced before she got to the fishing spot on how to tie her knots. Wow. You know, she understood. She reads. She reads. She read every book there was to read about surf casting. She was naming names I don't even know. She's like, oh, Billy this one, Billy that one. I'm like, yeah, I'm trying to go along with her like I know who she's talking about. I had no idea. I was laughing, you know. And she had some custom plugs. She had some builders make her custom plugs, you know. So like I said, she did her homework. She came out. It was a pleasure teaching somebody like that.
And then she selected you as her guide.
No, she just.
Sounds like it.
She just found me. I was just a guy. I was just a guy making a cup of coffee.
Just a guy making a cup of coffee.
And yeah. We got. No, you know, Paulie from Paulie's Bait and Tackle. He give him a little shout. He told you know. And this is for girls. If girls are listening, you got to be careful out there. We were on lonely stretches of beach.
Yeah.
We were on lonely stretches of beach, and she got word that I'm a reputable guy out here, and so she felt very comfortable with me.
Yeah.
And you have to be, you know, as a girl out here, you have to pick and choose. You're talking about being a girl. You know, I'm sure there's a lot of women listening. You know, she would text her mother before we got there. She would text her mother while we were there. She texted when we were finished, and she texted when she got back to the hotel room. Yeah. And, you know, I told her, I said, you know, I gave her the suggestion, and her parents loved it. I said, QVC, HSN, sell these burner phones for 1,500 minutes, 1,500 texts for $80. She had her regular iPad phone out all day trying to do these texts. I said, no. I said, another piece of gear you need is a $75 phone from I said, you get 1,500 texts. I said, you drop that in the water. I said, it's no big deal. You got your regular phone in your car. I said, you drop your good phone in the water. You just lost $1,200, $1,400. And then you still have no way to get in touch with your mother or your father or your sister or your brother or your boyfriend. I said, you get that burner phone, you can take all the pictures you want, you drop it in the water, no big deal. You go buy another one for $75, and you got your regular phone in the car to make any emergency phone calls, you know, let people know you're okay. And so, like I said, her parents like the idea of having a burner phone. I think that's a good suggestion, you know, for any of these girls. Same thing, you know, another part of the gear that you need out here. You got to have a hider key. You got to have a hider key. Because everybody loses their keys out here. And the next one is $150, $100, you know, battery jumper in your car, one of those little lithium-ion ones that you put on. Everybody leaves their interior light on or their radio or something. They do it all the time. And now they're stuck in an abandoned parking lot, you know, and you got to play the safety factor, you know. So I'm not trying to scare girls. It's just I'm saying be prepared. You know, for $225, you got an extra phone, you got an extra battery, and you're all set to get out of there, and an extra key. You know, the world is a crazy place. I mean, we all know it. The world is not, you know, it's not as innocent as what it used to be, and it's terrible that it isn't. But thank God, the fishing community pretty much is a very, very good, tight, quality community, and you know, we're very fortunate. We're very fortunate. You know, and then on that note too, like the other day, I had a gentleman that I was sound asleep. It was the morning. Like I said, I had just pulled almost a 36-hour day. I was completely 100%. I was shot. I went to sleep on a little private spot on the beach, and I was sleeping. But I heard somebody on the phone talking about, yeah, just make the right there, and I'll be right there. But I was sound asleep. I didn't know. Otherwise, I would have got up and helped him. And finally, I hear some more noises. I wake up, and I see this guy, and he's trying to shovel himself out. I'm like, where we were, it's impossible to get stuck. So I thought. So I go over to him. I said, big man. I said, what happened? Oh, I'm stuck. I'm looking at I'm like, how are you stuck? You know, his tires were fine. You know, I'm looking at the driver's side. I can't see the passenger side. He goes, no. He goes, you don't know what I did. I said, what'd you do? He goes, I ran over a log. So what happened was when
Is this down here by any chance?
Yeah, not far.
The other night, I think we saw that. We were driving on the beach. Oh.
So I look under the car, and his passenger side wheel went right over like a full-size telephone pole, and it was ditched out on the other side. So his chassis was sitting on the log.
Oh my God.
So I said, let me give you a hand. He goes, man, I don't know what you're going. I said, no, come on. I said, I got the chains. I said, we'll put them on, and it was a little bit of a pain in the neck spot because we were right on the water line, and it's all rocks, big rock area, and you know, I said, look, I said, what we're gonna do is, I said, I'm gonna tie it up. I said, I'm gonna get, you know, make it tight. I said, once I make it tight, you're gonna get in your car, throw it in reverse. I says, and once I tell you to let go of the brake, I said, let go. I said, we're gonna roll right off. He goes, I don't think so. I said, we're gonna roll right off. I put it on. I put my truck in low. He couldn't believe it. We got him right off. And the gentleman insisted on.
Hey there.
What are you guys camping here?
Not camping, no.
Oh, it was one of your campers.
No, that's my truck. No, I'm the truck. I'm fishing, but I'm not camping.
No, I was just wondering if they give you a hard time here if you were overnight with your setup.
No, as long as you got a fishing permit. As long as you got a fishing permit.
I have the state one, but
yeah, that's all you.
But not the Camp Hero.
No, you got to get a camp. You can go down and buy one. You got to go buy a Camp Hero.
Yeah, they're still they're still selling today.
Should be. Should be.
You get them in Montauk Downs?
Yeah. It's prior to Memorial Day and after Labor Day.
Oh, very cool. I appreciate it.
All right.
See ya.
Take care. Good luck.
So, So anyway, so we get done with getting them off. Now he insists on giving me some. I said it's karma. You know, you got to help people out on these beaches. You can't just, you know, it's etiquette. You know, you see somebody down and out, and there's a tide coming in or something. You got to help. So anyway, he threw me a nice, beautiful plug he threw in the back of my truck, and I told his buddies finally showed up, and I told them, I said, I don't want it. They said, you got to take it. You know. So, you know, but awesome. That's the way. You know, you got to be prepared out here. I've been fortunate though. I've only been stuck once. I've only truly been stuck once. I was going on some sugar sand, and I went right down. I felt I was driving, and it wasn't even like normally you could feel it, and I just went right into the sugar sand. I went right down into my chassis, and it was the middle of the summer, and it took me about 2.5 hours I had to dig everything from underneath my car. I went right. It wasn't like I went right down. It was like.
Was it just a pilot error? Did you just not have the tires right?
No, it was just it was sand shift.
Oh,
it was
okay.
it was probably a south blow or something, and it blew into, like, you know, there's anybody that's 4-wheel drives knows, you know, you get the ruts, you get those little. So I was going over the top of one, and I went into the next one, and it was just filled with sand, and I just was all sort. It didn't pack at all. It was just blown sugar sand. So as soon as I went over it, I just went right down.
Have you ever ended up in the drink out here in a tough situation, or has it always been safe? When you were first starting, you ever got in the water in your waders or anything like that?
You know, everybody. I mean, you know, like I said, we all push it out here. So before you get into a wetsuit, you will fish waders probably till you get yourself into some kind of a situation. You know, I mean, like you said, you know, the worst part about, you got to remember, 90% of the people that are doing the waders unsafely out here are young. So, and that's exactly what happens. So you'll be out, you'll go to a rock on low tide. Next thing you know, you got an incoming tide. You stayed out there too long. Now you don't realize, like you said, you don't realize that the water's going to be over your chest wader. Now you step out, you didn't have a top on, and now next thing you know, whoop, the water's inside of you. Now you're walking like the Pillsbury Doughboy, you know, back in, and that's when you realize.
That ever happened to you or not?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah,
not just once. It took me about 10 times.
Yeah.
See, I used to like to drink a lot, and I didn't have a lot of money, and I didn't want to put a wetsuit on, and so it took me. Most people 1 or 2 times. Probably took me about 10 times. And then I said, I gotta do something else. I bought a used wetsuit. And then
what did the drinking having to do with the waders?
I didn't have no money.
You drank it all.
I didn't have no money. When I first came out here, I was fishing in flip flops. The old timers used to laugh at me. I'd be in flip flop. I would when I would first come out here, I would make sure I had enough money. Not even enough money. I would fill up my car so that I had enough gas to get home. I would stay here till I ran out of money, till I couldn't eat no more.
It's like the casino.
And then it was worse. It was worse. And then I mean, man, I can't even get into it. It was.
That's what it's all about, though, right?
Well, they're talking about camaraderie. So like some of the old timers, they hated me all day long when I fished. They wouldn't talk to me. But like on the second day, they didn't see me and they see my car still up in the lot. They would knock on my window. Kid, you're alive. I would wake up and they'd be like, here, drink some water. They throw me a bottle of water. And then I would get up about an hour or two later because now I'm embarrassed again, and I would drive home, and then the next Thursday, Wednesday, Friday, whatever it was, I'd drive right back out. I was on top of my game. By 2 o'clock in the morning Friday night, I was drunk again and I would try to fish. But they say Montauk got 2 lines. They say, one for the liquor store and one for AA. There's 2 lines out here. Yeah, I made my way to sobriety, and life has been fantastic ever since, you know. But it's a fun place. It's a fun place.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've never seen anything like it, honestly. And I hope the fish come back here because the stories. I mean, I know you've got stories. I know a guy that's been drinking and in the rocks and not sleeping. It's a wonder you're alive.
There's a lot of stories out here.
I'm gonna get the story about that tattoo at some point.
That was me and one of my best friends in the world. We just decided one night to just go get tattoos. Me and him were always.
What is that thing?
It's I don't know, what do they call it? A fedora? Just it was supposed to be more of a fishing tattoo, but they didn't really have any fishing tattoos. And again, like I said, we like to drink. So me and my buddy Billy went out one night, and I think he got mom that night on him. Yeah. And I got this stupid thing.
It's like a skull, a cigar, a fedora.
And a call out to his wife Tricia, who put up with us for so long. She wanted to kill us. You know, again, you know what, Jamie, like I say to you, fortunately, as you know, as much as I used to drink and this and that, like I told you a few times we spoke, it's about staying halfway in shape. This is a game of you can't be afraid of the water, and you got to be in some kind of a shape. You know, if you're not in some kind of shape, that's when you're going to get hurt or you're not going to make it. That's the key out here. You know, you got to know your limitations. And fortunately, you know, even when I was at my worst of drinking and this and that, I would always did triathlons. I always did, 5Ks. I was always, big bike, and I loved, riding a bicycle. So I was always in some kind. I might have got flabby and fluffy and this and that, but I was always solid underneath. And so yeah, fortunately, but
what's the dumbest or craziest thing you've seen happen out here? Or at least one of them. Anyway.
I mean, we
stuff to make you shake your
we've
head.
we've had there was one gentleman in particular out here. His name was Paul, and the man was insane, hilariously insane. But he would put on a rubber duck hat, like the yellow rubber ducky hat, and he would just swim out. And then he would catch the tides, the incomings, the outgoings. He'd go right around the lighthouse, whatever. And it's called skishing. And in the middle of the night, you would just see these lights in front. You were talking about lights, but back then he was around. So you would see these lights just floating in the water. And it was Melnick, 500 yards, 600 yards out. And you'd be like, Melnick, ah! You wave to him, and he'd be just, it was pure insanity.
Now, with the sharks and the seals and all that, he wouldn't do that anymore, would he?
You know what? In his heyday, I don't know with him. I don't know with him. I'm not going to say he wouldn't do it. I'll be honest with you. I wouldn't. He was definitely, he was Paul. I don't know if he would do it. It's listen, the sharks that are around here right now, most of them are sandbars, stuff like that, duskies, whatever. Supposedly there's some black tips around. There's supposedly some bulls around now.
Any great whites?
Well, the nursery's right off of Montauk. Yeah. So obviously there's a nursery. That means there's a mother. So, I know today's world things just happen now. I don't know, but no, normally there's a mother. So there got to be a mother shark out here. But I seen the biggest shark I ever saw since I've been out here. It was in June, and it was in August. And I seen a monster shark out here this year. I don't know what it was. I had just got sharked. My bluefish had just got bit in half. I just brought in a head. And there were sharks all around us, swimming around the rocks that we were on. And that was right over here. And next thing I know, it definitely wasn't the shark that bit my fish in half. 30 seconds, a minute later, it was just sunrise. I just seen this fin, and it had to be sticking out, 16, 18 inches. And I'm not sure what it was. It was big. It was the biggest one I ever saw out here. It was really big. It was a big shark, and that was it. I called it a day. I called it a day. We were done anyway.
When you look down here, these points, you can just imagine them cruising. You can sort of see the depth when the sun's high like this. And I don't know what you like to fish, but that's sort of like, can you identify spots when you're sitting up here that you like?
Oh, sure. Like I tell everybody. It's
you see the dark, the light.
Bass fishing simple.
You know?
You pick a point. It's so easy that it's ridiculous. You pick points. So if you're fishing a 5-mile stretch,
Well, what about the coves though? Because coves can be productive, right?
Well, but there's also points on those coves, right?
Well,
if you got a cove,
like
there's
this,
a point.
right?
But there's a point on those coves.
Yeah. Okay.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you're 100% right. So that's what I'm saying. Like now with GPS, there's no more real. It's not that there's anything secret anyway, but you can like I said, if you do your research and you're going somewhere new, you look for the points and how hard is it? It's not hard to do. And then those would be the spots I focused on. And like you're saying, Jamie, some of the coves, they're very deep.
Yeah.
You fish in the coves, but normally, if you're able to fish that point, you could fish, left, right, and center. So now you got 180 degrees of fishing. When you're in a cove, sometimes there's nothing in that cove. They're sitting on those points,
right.
are those. But most of the, I'll be honest with you, I don't fish a lot of coves. I fish more of the points.
Yeah.
I fish more of the points. I have one particular, cove that I do fish.
Right.
But I'm way out on that one. That one I swim out to a rock, and we do all right. But again, then we're in current.
Right,
we're into the deep, but we're into 18 feet of water when we're casting off of that rock.
Here comes, I don't know who this guy is, Echo Lab.
Everybody got to enjoy the view out here. You remember last time you
that's
were here,
it.
you had the tractor trailers all out here.
Absolutely.
You had all the tractor trailers. This is a little piece of America. There's so many spots in America that people don't appreciate. They stay within a 15-mile radius of their home. And with the 100-mile radius of their home, they got spots that are just absolutely beautiful. How was the fishing? been all right. You know,
We had the point to ourselves for the last hour, but we did notice a truck pulling in on the edge of the bluff and taking in the view, and then slowly making its way towards us. And with Bill being Bill, he was soon involved in another conversation.
you got to put the time, time and effort. You know how it goes. You know how.
I always love to talk fishing.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's been this year, like we said, it's been if you're putting your time and your work in. I was telling
It's
Jamie.
better.
Yeah.
But I think it's going to be better than the past 2 years. Now, the key is going to be, are guys going to do the right thing? Are people going to do the right thing? Are we going to have people poaching? Are we going to have people letting go trophy fish? Because a lot of times fishermen fish by themselves, middle of the night, you get a 40-pounder. Is it going to go back?
I'll be honest with you. I've been out almost every night for the last month and a half, and things have been pretty on the up and the up.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I know. Here, here's Jamie. Here's one of the issues. So the other night, we had somebody that got caught in a big dilemma. He caught a 30-something pounder. Let's say 35. It was right, mid 30s. The fish was dead.
Yeah.
What do you do in that situation? You got to let it go. You have to let it go. But we were like, it was such a terrible situation. You're in, and listen, we don't kill. We're all, environmentally conscious. All of it. 99% of the guys that are out here.
I would say.
And this was an environmentally conscious guy. And we watched the fish, and we were devastated by it, And we were saying, it's terrible that, but you can never put that rule in, or if the fish was dead, kill it, because then everybody's going to have a dead fish.
Right, exactly. Everyone's going to
have a dead fish.
Let a trophy fish that you get like that.
Yeah.
And for a lot of these guys, haven't hooked into a 30 or a 40 or a 50, in their life. I'm part of the 45 club, but I haven't gotten my 50 yet.
Right.
And that was when we could actually keep the reasonable size fish. I find that if guys do the right thing and everyone is on the same page, you get Maryland, Connecticut, Delaware, everyone on the same page, it will come back.
Right.
The problem has been the past years that everyone has different regulations.
Right. You're 100%. Yeah.
Right. So, and I understand because they only get a certain size fish by them. That's their deal. I get that. But you do 2-3 years of that. In 5 years, you're going to have a class of fish that's going to be amazing.
Right.
Everywhere.
Right.
Yeah.
That's why what they're doing now is hopefully going to bring that, get us to the point where we're going to have really good quality fish. And if guys do the right thing. If they don't, it's going to be the same as it's always been.
Stay tuned.
Yeah.
Your lips to God's ears, we hope.
That's it.
I mean, I'm out here every day.
Yeah.
You see the Sequel Lab truck, I'm the only guy here.
That's what we were talking about. That's what we're saying. There's not enough people fishing to give any reports. So like I told Jamie 100 times already, you got to make your own report.
Yeah. You got to, everyone has their network. They're guys that they talk to. They're guys that they're listening. Hey, how did you do last night? Where did you fish?
Right.
But the guys who really know what's going on are the guys that are going out every night.
Every night. Time.
You got to put your time in.
That's it. I appreciate it.
Appreciate you.
Thank you
All
very
right,
much.
sir.
Appreciate you guys.
Good
Keep
meeting
doing
you.
the good work.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Are you going fishing today?
I gotta spend some time tonight. There's a tournament coming up this week, so the guys are going to be coming out here Wednesday. The tournament's Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Today's Monday. Last night, like I says, we didn't do too well. So tonight, I got to fish hard. I got to fish. Tonight I'm going to switch things up a little bit. I'm going to fish totally on the outgoing and see what tomorrow morning brings. I'll probably start tonight about midnight and fish right into the dawn. I'll do 7 hours tomorrow morning.
Let me know how you do, by the way. I want to report this time.
A special thanks to our friends at Madison River Fishing Company for being part of this journey. They've been providing quality fishing products worldwide for 40 years and are indispensable to fly fishermen in the know. Find them at mrfc.com.